Today, we're going to dive into one of the most amazing pieces of engineering that exist inside every single one of us, the cell's very own water gate. It's a system that solves a really incredible biological puzzle.
I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. A single cell in your body, right now, is handling a flood of water traffic at a speed that's just, well, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. So how on earth does it do it? To figure that out, we've got to start with the main barrier that everything has to get past. And that barrier, the cell's first line of defense, is its gatekeeper, the cell membrane. Now, this membrane, it's not just some simple wall. A better way to think about it is like a super exclusive nightclub with a really tough bouncer. It is extremely picky about what it lets in and out. And that selectivity, it's literally the difference between life and death for the cell. So who's on the list? Well, small, uncharged molecules, think oxygen, carbon dioxide, they can just slip right on through, no problem. But the big stuff, like sugar molecules or anything with an electrical charge like a sodium ion, nope, they are stopped right at the door. And that's because the inside of that membrane is this fatty, oily layer. Scientists call it hydrophobic, and it just repels anything that's too big or has a charge.
Okay, and this is where the plot really thickens. Water is small, sure, but it's also what we call polar, which means it has a slight electrical charge. So yeah, a little bit of water can kind of leak through this fatty layer, but it is way, way too slow. For decades, scientists were scratching their heads because they knew that in places like our kidneys, water was moving thousands of times faster than the simple diffusion could ever explain. There just had to be another way in. And that whole mystery led to the discovery of a secret, high-speed superhighway built for one thing and one thing only: water. You've probably heard of osmosis, right? It's the basic force that makes water want to move to balance things out. It naturally flows from where there's a lot of it to where there's less. But here's the thing. Osmosis explains why water moves, not how it moves. It's the reason for the traffic, but it doesn't build the road. And the discovery of that road, well, it came about like so many other great scientific breakthroughs. Completely by accident. A scientist named Peter Agre was actually studying something totally different when he kept finding this mysterious little protein in his samples. He first thought it was just junk, a contaminant. Turns out it was the answer to the entire water transport mystery. And here it is. This is an aquaporin. It's this incredible little protein that sits in the cell membrane and creates a perfect high-speed tunnel just for water molecules. It is the VIP pass, that secret superhighway everyone had been looking for. And when I say high speed, I'm not kidding. A single one of these aquaporin channels can move about 1 billion water molecules across the membrane every single second. It's just a mind-boggling rate of flow. So how can this tiny protein be so ridiculously good at its job? Well, its genius really comes down to a few brilliant design features. We can really break down its structure into 3 crucial parts. You've got its overall hourglass shape, a really clever bit of chemistry called the NPA motif, and then a final checkpoint known as the R/R selectivity filter. Let's check out each one. First off, the channel isn't just a simple straight tube. It's got this distinctive hourglass shape that gets super narrow in the middle. This physically forces the water molecules, which normally like to stick together, to break apart and line up in a neat, single-file line. It's basically the ultimate form of crowd control. Okay, next up, about halfway through this channel, the NPA motif creates a very specific positive electrical field. Now, as a water molecule zips past, this field literally grabs its oxygen atom and flips the whole molecule upside down. It's this beautiful, elegant little trick that breaks the chain of bonds that tiny protons use to sneak through with the water. This is absolutely critical for keeping the cell's all-important electrical balance just right. And for the grand finale, you have the R/R selectivity filter. This is the tightest squeeze in the whole channel, a physical bottleneck that is perfectly sized for one and only one water molecule. Anything bigger, like a sodium or potassium ion, just can't physically get through. It's the ultimate guarantee that only pure water makes the cut. So we have this unbelievably efficient system for moving water. But what happens when that delicate water balance gets completely thrown out of whack? A really dramatic way to see this in action is in plant cells, through a process called plasmolysis. This is what happens when a plant cell finds itself in a really salty or sugary solution, and all its water starts rushing out of the cell like crazy. And this comparison just shows it perfectly. On the left, you've got a healthy, happy cell. It's turgid, plump, and full of water pushing against its cell wall. That's what keeps a plant standing up nice and firm. But on the right, that's a plasmolyzed cell. The water has rushed out, and its insides have literally shrunk and pulled away from the cell wall. When this happens at a large scale, we see it as a wilting plant.
But look, this isn't just about plants wilting. This cellular plumbing system is absolutely critical inside our own bodies. So let's connect all of this to our own health.
You can really think of aquaporins as the fundamental plumbing system for all cells. And in us humans, they play a massively important role in our kidneys, which have the huge job of constantly balancing all the water in our body. And get this, it's not just one type of aquaporin. There are at least 13 different kinds in mammals, and a whole bunch of them are hard at work in the kidney. You've got different types, like AQP1 and AQP2, and they're in different parts of the kidney's plumbing, each with a very specific, specialized job in pulling water back into the body to keep us hydrated. So here's the bottom line. When these microscopic channels stop working right, the consequences can be huge. A single mutation in the gene for AQP2 can cause a type of diabetes insipidus where the kidneys just can't hold on to water, leading to constant extreme thirst. In another case, if the immune system messes up and starts attacking AQP4 channels in the brain, it can lead to a really severe neurological disorder. It just goes to show how important this system is. And that brings us to a really fascinating final thought. We've seen that aquaporins are basically nature's perfect water filter. They're incredibly fast, efficient, and selective. So just imagine, if we could develop ways to precisely control them, to open or close these gates whenever we wanted, what could we do? Could we treat kidney disease? Or maybe even reduce dangerous brain swelling after an injury? The potential is just immense, and it all comes back to a tiny protein that turned out to be the master key to life's water highway.